fresh escalation, and Israel has struck what it calls were Iranian targets inside Syria and has warned Syrian forces not to in fact attack Israeli territory or retaliate, even though Israel has carried out these missile strikes.
In the tense theater of Middle East geopolitics, Israel's airstrikes over Syria intensified, raising eyebrows and tensions with Iran. Is this a calculated escalation or a defensive maneuver? Join us for a brief yet impactful journey into the heart of the storm as we decipher the motives behind Israel's unyielding aerial campaign. The skies hold secrets, and we're about to unveil them. There have been airstrikes in Syria, and it's believed that Israel is responsible. These airstrikes have caused worries because they led to the death of 2 Iranian military advisors and the temporary closure of big airports in Syria. People fear this might make the situation in the region even more tense. Israel and Iran have been having a kind of secret war in Syria for a long time, but recently it seems like this conflict has become more intense, with airstrikes almost every day that Syrian officials say are done by Israel. This hidden fighting has been going on for years, and it has become more serious now. This increase in attacks happened after a person with weapons crossed from Lebanon into Israel. Also, Iran made friends with its rival Saudi Arabia last month. At the same time, Israel is dealing with a big problem at home because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wants to change how the courts work. Israel has been carrying out secret strikes in Syria to stop Iran from gaining influence there. Even though many of these strikes have happened, Israel usually doesn't admit to them. Since the beginning of 2023, Syria has said that there were 10 strikes by Israel on its territory. 4 of these strikes happened in 5 days up to this Tuesday. The United States, which is a close friend of Israel, has also been in a kind of fight with Iran in Syria. In March, US forces reacted to a drone attack they thought was linked to Iran. They bombed places in Syria that were used by groups connected to Iran. Unfortunately, a US contractor died, and 6 Americans got hurt. An official from a group in Iraq that supports Iran said that 7 Iranians died in these US strikes. Even though there was some tension between the US and Iran, it didn't turn into a bigger fight. But now people are worried that the exchanges between Israel and Iran might make things worse. Israel has always said that it won't let Iran become powerful in Syria, and this is making the situation in the region more difficult. In simple terms, fights are happening in Syria, and it seems like Israel and Iran are involved. This is making people worried because it might lead to a bigger problem in the area. The United States is also part of this situation, but things haven't escalated too much so far. In Syria's 12-year conflict, Iran has sent many military advisors and fighters from countries like Iraq and Lebanon to help President Bashar Assad. These Iran-backed fighters are spread across different parts of Syria. Israel considers Iran its main enemy due to Iranian threats against Israel, support for anti-Israel groups like Hezbollah, and worries about Iran's nuclear program. Western countries claim Iran is trying to develop nuclear weapons, which Iran denies. Israel has been accused of attacking Iran, including killing nuclear scientists and damaging nuclear facilities. Recent airstrikes in Syria indicate Israel's concern about fighters being close to its northern border. There are fears that Iran is trying to give advanced weapons, like guided missiles, to Hezbollah. Israel and Hezbollah had a 34-day war in 2006, and both sides have avoided a big conflict since then. Israel sees Hezbollah, with its large arsenal of rockets and missiles, as a major threat. Lebanese military expert Hisham Jaber estimates that Iran has about 1,800 military advisors in Syria, mainly working with Syrian troops. A series of airstrikes on Syria began with an attack on January 2nd, temporarily closing Damascus airport. This happened right after the most right-wing government in Israel's 74-year history took office. Despite widespread protests in Israel, including disagreements between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the airstrikes continued. The disagreements were partly about the government's controversial plans to change the judiciary. Netanyahu even fired Gallant for criticizing the plan, but later backtracked and temporarily stopped the push for the overhaul until Parliament reconvenes in a month. To sum it up, Iran has been involved in Syria's conflict by sending advisors and fighters. Israel sees Iran as a major threat and has been conducting airstrikes in Syria to prevent fighters from getting too close to its borders. There are concerns about Iran providing advanced weapons to Hezbollah. The recent airstrikes have raised tensions, and despite internal issues in Israel, the government has continued its military actions. The situation remains complex, with the risk of further escalation in the region. There has been growing talk about military activities in Syria involving Israel and Iran. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, and another unidentified individual have made public statements hinting at military actions without explicitly confirming them. Gallant emphasized that Israel will not allow Iran and Hezbollah to harm them and declared their intent to push them out of Syria whenever necessary. Lebanese military expert Hisham Jaber believes that a full-blown conflict may not unfold. He suggests that the United States, currently engaged in the war in Ukraine and dealing with tensions with China, would likely discourage a broader regional war. The spotlight is on Israel for recent airstrikes in Syria, targeting both Iranian-linked figures and infrastructure. These strikes hit key airports in Damascus and Aleppo, aiming to prevent arms shipments into Syria. However, they also disrupted aid shipments following a deadly earthquake on February 6th. Notably, the first reported Israeli strikes after the earthquake on February 19th targeted residential areas in Damascus, resulting in casualties. Opposition activists claimed that these strikes targeted Iranian-backed militias. In mid-March, Israel reported killing an armed man suspected of entering the country from Lebanon and causing a car explosion. This incident, which left one Israeli injured, raised concerns among officials suspecting Hezbollah or direct Iranian involvement in the infiltration. Adding to the complexity, a commander from the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad was assassinated near Damascus a few days after the alleged infiltration. Prime Minister Netanyahu also revealed that Israel's intelligence agency Mossad assisted Greece in preventing a terrorist attack, resulting in the arrest of 2 individuals planning an attack on a Jewish center in Athens. The situation escalated further when an Israeli strike in a southern suburb of Damascus killed 2 advisors from Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Shortly afterward, Israel's Air Force shot down a drone that entered Israel from Syria, accusing Iran of launching it. The quick acknowledgement of the deaths by Iran raised concerns about potential retaliation. Experts speculate that Iran might target Israelis abroad in response to these actions. Recent events, including airstrikes and an alleged infiltration, have raised concerns about a potential conflict. Israel emphasizes its commitment to preventing harm, while Iran hints at retaliation for the deaths of its advisors. The situation remains tense, with the risk of further escalations in the region.